Welcome back to the class, students. What is left now are two small topics, out of which the first one we are going to see is not that important, which is accidents, very unfrequently tested in the examinations, and the second one is blindness. So let us see what accidents is. Accidents, as you can see, is defined as an unexpected, unplanned occurrence which may involve injury. So it should be unexpected, it should be unplanned. The WHO definition says an unpremeditated event resulting in recognizable damage. So you didn't plan for it, something happened and you have damage. This is what is the WHO definition of an accident. Remember, it should not be planned. Okay? Very recently, a guy jumped off from the level of the space. That is not an accident, that was planned. So anything that is planned and has a potential to cause damage, mild or severe, is accident. Obviously, if you have accidents, you have morbidities. The morbidities can be slight injuries, serious injuries. The take home point on this slide basically is what I have emboldened there, and that is the abbreviated injury scale. So what you should know, that we have a scale called as abbreviated injury scale, which is used for measurement of the morbidity, whether it might be serious or it might be trivial. So the seriousness of the injury is measured by the abbreviated injury scale. Disability is again classified as temporary or permanent. The words are exactly what they mean usually in English dictionary. Temporary is temporary, so that the person reverts back to his normal physiological state, and permanent is once the damage is done, the damage is permanent. You can't revert back to your physiological state. These are the definitions of these things. Coming to the next, classification is partial and total. Partial means half, okay, less than total. Total means a complete disability to do something. Say for example, loss of an arm. That is a total disability, irreversible disability. What are the types of accidents then? You have the most common accidents in India are road traffic accidents. The next is domestic accidents, industrial accidents, railway accidents, and violence. Let us run down this list and see what they are, what are the important factors to consider in this, and what may be one fine day, once in a blue moon, in a chance come in the examination. First of all, road traffic accidents. We are a country which is notorious for road traffic accidents. We have a lot of road traffic accidents, and as you already know, helmets and wearing seat belts is a rarity. Some odd guys who have some problems adhere to the rules, they wear helmets and they wear seat belts. This should change, or otherwise road traffic accidents are going to be a major concern all the time. They are the first to rank for all the fatal accidents here, and in developing countries, obviously we know that because two-wheelers are more in developing countries, accidents of two-wheelers and deaths due to two-wheelers are also more. And in developed countries, people usually have cars, nobody drives bikes, so obviously you have accidents which involve cars in developed countries. What are the differences between developed countries and developing countries as far as accidents are concerned? Nothing new, nothing that you already don't know. You have lots of cattle in India. Every foreigner, when he comes to India, this is probably the first observation that he has. You have lots of pedestrians on the Indian roads. Nobody stops at the red light, and zebra crossing is just a word. So these are basically the differences. You have lots of potholes and all the conditions which are prone for accidents. So these are basically the list that you can see on the screen right now. What are the basic differences of the developed countries' roads and the developing countries' roads? Domestic accidents. Again, a second important category as far as accidents is concerned. Domestic accidents are defined basically which happens in the domestic domain, which are not road accidents, which are not industrial accidents. So basically what remains is the domain of domestic accidents. The common accidents that you have here is babies drowning into waters. Okay, a child is playing into a water bath and he drowns. That is a severe thing to happen. Frequently happens. Okay, drowns, burns, poisoning, falls, injuries from pointed or sharp objects, as well as bites from rabid or non-rabid animals. So these are the common injuries that you have. Burns usually have a disproportionate involvement of females, and there is a hypothesis that this is probably related to the dowry system that we have. A very bad system, a social disease which should be stopped immediately, and therefore you have an excess of burn cases involving females. Coming to the next subtopic, that is industrial accidents. This is a domain of occupational health, industrial health and safety, industrial hygiene, all those sorts of things. Industrial accidents. 60 to 80% are involved in people who are engaged in high risk industries. Say for example, agricultural, fisheries, home industries and small scale units. If you see the list, you will notice that there is one thing in common. Precautions, prohibitions and maintenance of equipment and personnel are not followed very meticulously in these countries or these areas. So therefore these are prone for accidents. Rapid industrialization has also resulted in mortality and morbidity of many in the hazardous working industries. We already saw protective goggles are missing, aprons are missing, equipment which is right for the right job is missing. Ergonomics is still a fancy word. So with all these conditions, industrial accidents are on the rise and the prevalence is also very, very high. Children, physically challenged people or mentally challenged people are obviously more prone to accidents. Here some of the important points. Men have more accident rates than females. So that is one thing you should know. Accidents are more in the evening as compared to in the morning because you have fatigue in the evening. Accidents are more in people who are newly recruited to the industries as compared to the people who have been working in the industries for a very long time. So in new people, accidents are more. So these are a couple of important points that you should note along with industrial accidents. Railway accidents. Again, a very common entity, happens a lot. Unfortunately, out of all these technological advancements, we are pathetically failing in controlling the rate of railway accidents. One of the chief things that you should know probably is that they are majority of the times caused because of human failure. It is not mechanical failure. Majority of the times it is human failure which causes these accidents. Violence, a big topic in the society. You blame it on movies, computer games, increasing acceptance of violence as a means of solving problem. So that is violence. Violence is unfortunately increasing, and you can see that risk factors for violent behavior are, as I said, exposure to violent means. You have availability of lethal weapons like guns at your disposal. This is a very high priority right now because recently you know that there is a shootout in the US and there is a huge debate. The current president of US is also facing a lot of pressures from his party and the opposition for gun control measures. It has been proven out of doubt that the availability of firearms increases the chance of fatal accidents. So it is a definitive risk factor for violence, a definitive risk factor for death. So availability of lethal weapons is another important risk factor. Because of these recent things which happened, maybe you could have a question on this, and remember the answer would be yes, availability of firearms is a definitive risk factor for violence and especially lethal violence. Consumption of alcohol, another big problem. As you can see, 2/3 of the cases of violent behavior are associated with alcohol consumption. So people who are inebriated lose their control and resort to violence. Prevention, you have a list on your slides. We'll just run down through the list, and the first thing is data collection. So we need to have the background of violence that we have. You have safety education. This especially applies to factory workers. Promotion of safety measures at all levels of workforce. Avoiding alcohol and other drugs altogether. A very rational suggestion won't only help in accidents but a lot of other things. Primary care has to be taught. Say for example, you are working in a factory, you are prone to ocular trauma. So at least a primary care physician should be available who can take care of the ocular injuries that you may have. This is primary care. Elimination of causative factors. Say for example, you are working in a sawmill. So an enclosure would be a very rational method of preventing ocular injuries, enclosing the working area so that you do not get trauma. Enforcement of laws. Again, we are very bad at this. We have laws for anything and everything, but enforcement is definitely a problem. Rehabilitation services. If an employer is directly or indirectly responsible for the damage that is done to the employee, then he is obliged to have rehabilitative services. You cannot have a military man going on to the border fighting and then he has lost his leg and you say that okay, there's nothing that I can do. Rehabilitation is a definitive measure that has to be taken, especially as far as accidents is concerned, and it is one of the primary responsibilities that this domain has. Accident research, that is what ergonomic comes in, safety measures comes in. Examples are helmets, seat belts. Okay, if you have ever seen a lot of English movies, I am very sure you see the trigger that you have for launching the missile. That trigger has a cap. You see that they open that cap and then they launch the trigger. This is what is accident research. This is what is ergonomics. I don't want to fire that missile by accident. It should be a purposeful move. So this is accident research, prevention of accidents, and steps like isolation or reduction of disease morbidity through surveillance of health problems. So all of this is coming under accident research. With that, we finish off accidents, coming to the next small topic, that is of blindness. Mind well, this is a small topic, but a lot of notorious MCQs have been coming from blindness. Don't worry, I'll walk you through all the important points and I'll make sure by the end you are done with blindness. You are clear as far as those minor nitty-gritties of blindness there are. First of all, first things foremost, the most complicated part in blindness is put on the first slide here, the definition of blindness. How do you define blindness? You would be thinking, what a stupid question this is. How do you define blindness? A man who cannot see is blind. Unfortunately, things are not so simple. Blindness is defined according to programmatic needs. Further complications, everybody defines blindness according to his or her own convenience. Right now what you're seeing, the definition, the first definition on your slide is, WHO defines blindness as a visual acuity less than 3 by 60. I'll write it down on the board so that you have a more solid visual impression. This is the WHO definition of blindness. What does WHO say? A person who has less than 3 by 60 vision on the, how do you measure visual acuity? I'm sure everybody knows it is measured by the Snellen's chart. So visual acuity is measured by the Snellen's chart. On the Snellen's chart, if you have a visual acuity which is less than 3 by 60, WHO says you are blind. Okay, what is the Indian definition? How does India define blindness? And you have a different definition. That is a further complication. National Program for Control of Blindness, India, defines a visual acuity of less than 6 by 60. So this is the National Program for Control of Blindness definition, or say for example, I'll just write down India. So we say we don't want the WHO definition, we are far better. Strict 6 by 60. WHO says 3 by 60. Here lies a lot of confusion and here lies the root of a lot of MCQs. So make this very clear. This is the WHO definition. This is the Indian definition. All the questions will mention what they are asking for. They will specify as to if they want the WHO definition or they are talking about the Indian definition. As I said, the problem is that you have various prevalence of blindness because of this. Obviously, if I change the cutoffs, I have different values. So I have two different things to handle here. Inability to count fingers in daylight at 3 meters is another very, very important point. I cannot stress this enough. This is again operational tool by WHO. We know that we don't have ophthalmic surgeons everywhere. I don't have health workers everywhere. Forget health workers. I don't have Snellen's charts everywhere. What do? I stand at 3 meters from the patient and I show him fingers. No, the joke that we do with our friends, okay, count this. If that joke is done on 3 meters, that is when I am measuring the visual acuity. And if the person cannot measure the fingers from 3 meters, remember it is meters, not feet. From 3 meters, I say he is blind according to the WHO definition. Also, a final point here, the prevalence of blindness in India. I will be not giving you the figures of the world because I don't want to unnecessarily burden you. The figures of India are 0.7% for this definition, and I am writing it down purposefully with the number so that you have that image. And in India, that is 1.1% for me. So if I take this definition, which is a stricter definition, so I have a larger load, and the load is 1.1% of the Indian population is blind. 0.7% of the Indian population is blind according to the WHO definition. Again, unfortunately, questions have been asked differentially on this. So you should know the definition and consecutively the prevalences according to these two definitions. So that is the big take home message from this slide. You have different definitions. To complicate further, you have different prevalences, both of which you should know. And if you see this, I think it would not be very complicated henceforth. Causes of blindness in India. Number one cause is undoubtable champion on your slide, that is cataract. Cataract is the number one cause of blindness all over the world, all over India. Right now, I am not so much concerned about the world because you are going to come to India, you are going to give Indian examinations. Cataract, the biggest cause of blindness, very unfortunate cause. It hardly costs maybe 1,500, 2,000 Indian rupees for a patient to get an eyesight if he has cataract. People have cosmetic surgeries which go to lakhs of rupees, but people are blind. Look at the numbers, 62.9, almost 63% of the blind in India are blind because of a pathetic disease which is cataract, which can be cured by a mere 2,000 rupees expenditure. So this is where social injustice comes in. You spend say 2 lakh, 3 lakh, maybe 5 lakh rupees on your breast enhancement, and people are blind for 2,000 rupees here. And blindness is a very difficult thing to have. Try being blind for 10 minutes. It is very challenging. Cataract is a completely avoidable cause of blindness. Unfortunately, still we have it as a number one on the slide. Second is refractive error. Refractive error, hypermetropia, myopia, those kinds of things are refractive error. And third one is glaucoma. I won't mind if you forget the rest of the causes, but these 1, 2, 3 are really important. That is cataract, refractive error, and glaucoma. Glaucoma is high pressure in the eyeball. Hypertension of the eyeball is glaucoma. Cataract, all of you know, it is the opacification of the lens in the eyeball. Epidemiological factors. We will be seeing these epidemiological factors one by one. First and foremost, age. Again, a surprising number on the first thing that is shown in your slide. 30% of the blind lose their eyesight before the age of 20 years. So almost 1/3 of the people who go blind in the prime of their age. Very unfortunate. Children, the most common cause is refractive error. Nowadays you see all those small kids have specs. You did not see this earlier, but nowadays all the children have specs. A small kid with a heavy specs. So remember that. Children, refractive error is the number one cause of ocular morbidity. Again, this reminds me of a very dirty MCQ. MCQs can be formed asking you blindness. It can be formed asking you about the morbidity. If I ask you morbidity, it is different as compared to blindness. Blindness is this. Morbidity is any problem with the eye. Number one cause of morbidity is refractive error. Number one cause of blindness is cataract. Please do not confuse this. Make it very, very clear. Morbidity is different. Refractive error. Blindness is different. Cataract. Okay. For middle age, we saw it is cataract, and accidents and injuries are prone for occupational health groups. In sex, we have higher prevalence among females. Those chulhas, all the females blowing into the chulha, all the dust particles going into their eyes, all that they have is that kitchen and the kids. there is infection with trachoma, there is very poor ocular hygiene, trachoma infects the eye, these injuries infect the eye, and then you have blindness. So it is more in the females as far as India is concerned. Malnutrition, huge burden. How does malnutrition cause blindness, you ask? Biological plausibility seems a bit dicey here. Remember, vitamin A deficiency is a malnutrition cause, has a direct effect on the cornea. You have keratomalacia, you have corneal ulcers, you have corneal drying, you have bitot spots. A lot of things which are in the domain of malnutrition affect ocular health. Occupation, you already saw, a lot of occupations are a positive hazard for blindness, and you have airborne particles, sharp nails, all sorts of things, radiation, all of these affect the vision and cause blindness. Socioeconomic status, again, the poor are more prone as compared to the rich for blindness. Social factors, you have quacks doing a lot of ophthalmic surgeries, you have ignorance, poverty, low community hygiene, and inadequate healthcare services which contribute to the burden of blindness. Changing concepts in eye health care, you have primary eye care, epidemiological eye approach, team concept, and establishment of health programs. Primary eye care, taking care of ocular problems at the periphery. Okay, you can have bandages, you can have tetracycline ointments at the periphery. You can have some basic antibiotics also which can be given to the health worker so that the patients are not referred unnecessarily. This comes under primary eye care. Epidemiological approach, as I said, taking out the burden of the disease. How many people have the disease? That is the epidemiological approach. Obviously has to be done at the population level. Team concept is a big problem. Everywhere we know we have a severe deficiency of ophthalmologists, and therefore we want to train our Anganwadi workers or DAIs, peripheral health workers, in at least basic ophthalmology so that the basic problems of ophthalmology are solved. Prevention of blindness, there is a new thing which has come recently. It is highlighted on your slides. Please see, called as avoidable blindness. What is avoidable blindness? It is preventable blindness plus curable blindness. Avoidable blindness, this is new, can be asked. Avoidable blindness is defined by the WHO as preventable blindness plus curable blindness. Components of actions in the national program that we just saw. What are the components? You have 4 things: initial assessment, methods of intervention, long-term measures, and evaluation of the program. So this is what is important in blindness. As you can see on the slide right now in front of you, you have specific programs related to ocular health care. Those programs are trachoma control, school eye health services, vitamin A prophylaxis program, and occupational eye health services. So these are the programs which are associated with ocular health as far as India is concerned. If you don't remember the details, at least remember the names of the programs. In conclusion for this chapter for non-communicable diseases, as a passing remark, I will tell you one important thing which is called as the STEPS strategy. STEPS strategy, what you should know is a strategy devised by the WHO for the surveillance, monitoring, and comparability between countries of non-communicable diseases. So the first step in epidemiology, data collection, that is what STEPS is. You have questionnaires, you have physical measurements, you have biochemical measurements, so as to have a picture of the disease and to compare it with 2 countries and to devise a control measure. So all this is encompassed in STEPS, refers to non-communicable diseases. I hope non-communicable diseases was easy for you. See you in the next class. Thank you.